Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. Welcome to Bazaar Morning Call. I am Rima. With me, we've got Nigel and Prashant, and we're coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio. It's a fresh start to trade, and after a volatile Monday, the question is, can we build on the late recovery that we had yesterday? Mid-caps outperformed. Globally, Wall Street, it was a mixed sort of a day of... there was a recovery that we saw in Wall Street after the rout on Friday. So the global picture is looking a lot better. But Nigel, the big one that I'm most excited about is to see the kind of listing LG Electronics has.
Well, that's right. Big listing, well priced, and the street is going to be looking forward to. And all those that got in that IPO allocation, they'll be quite happy because they're going to be sitting on a smooth 30, 35, 40% kind of gains just on listing gains. So good times for those that got it.
And it's a rarefied few, right? Because so many messages on social media saying will apply, nothing, zero. But just amazing, 54 times overall. And just in terms of the sheer amount of money blocked for this IPO, it just kind of sort of tells you the story that we have had in the primary markets. Now, let's just quickly run you through what you need to know as we begin this new session. So it's the taco trade, which is, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. With regards to President Trump and his announcements. So 100% tariffs, all will be fine with China. And the market took note. So strong rebound is what we had. Equities were higher. S&P was up about 1.6%. NASDAQ was up 2.2%. Russell was up strongly. So now to boot, of course, around the same time is when we were talking about that comment from President Trump, which is walking back the tariffs, etc. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also came in. He said that Trump's meeting with President Xi in South Korea is still on. Now, remember, President Trump had essentially said that, maybe there's no need for a meeting now. But, after that tweet from him, the post from him yesterday, same time, I think expectations had risen that maybe that is going to be on. It was confirmed by Secretary Bessent. So WIX, which had rallied 31%, fell 12%, back to about 19%. Bond markets, cash trading was shut for Columbus Day public holiday. Futures traded, though not very much. Another day, another deal, right? Tech and AI. And that's the segment which has been sort of leading this move. So this time it was between OpenAI and Broadcom. Broadcom ended 10% higher. And both companies are going to develop and deploy 10 gigawatts of custom AI chips and computing systems over the next 4 years. That was the announcement which came through. And I think that reverberated across the tech and AI ecosystem. Lots of movers there. I'm not going into single stocks here. Oil prices, at least on WTI, just under $60. Gold prices continue their move higher, about 2.5% last night. So 41.30-ish is where we are at this morning. So there is no stopping. And of course, here the big moves have come through from silver ETFs, which are continuing their uninterrupted rally. Out of the Middle East, it happened yesterday around afternoon, evening. President Trump essentially hailing the Gaza Peace Summit as new beginning. This was happened in Egypt. Here in India, I think as Rima and Nigel were pointing out, the LG Electronics IPO listing is going to be the big one. So they asked for some 77,000 crores in market capitalization. And I think at least on day one, listing day, it's going to get a good response, 1 lakh crores in market cap, and then we'll see where it goes. But that is going to be the other big one. Now, just to tie in the levels, not very much has changed. Nifty, of course, ended lower, but off the lows by a big margin. We still ended above the 25,220 odd level. So the high on Friday was 25,330, which is the first resistance, which is Friday's high. And then the next stop then is 25,652. Support is 25,000. And for the Nifty Bank, it managed a green close yesterday, unlike the Nifty. And here the resistance next stop remains unchanged, 58,163. Support basically at about 55,821. So those are broadly numbers that we are working with. GIFT Nifty gives you a quick sense of how we start. And we'll pick it up from there. Absolutely flat. 6 or 7 point change lower is the implied open. I just want to quickly play out, Scott Bessent, on that President Xi and President Trump's meeting in South Korea, confirming that it's on.
The Chinese economy is doing very poorly, and maybe they're trying to take focus off of that. Two, China, as opposed to the United States is pushing for peace in the world. China is financing war. China purchases of Russian oil is financing the Russian war machine. They purchase Iranian oil, and we have been calling them out on that. So maybe it was to distract from that. And three, maybe it was a mistaken attempt to try to gain leverage before the two leaders meet in Korea in October. And I can tell you, trying to get leverage in front of a meeting with Donald Trump is a bad idea.
Absolutely. Well, that's Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, on, of course, that meeting in South Korea later this month. F&O statistics, how are things looking? How's positioning, more importantly? Nigel is standing by with exactly that. Nigel, over to you.
Well, today's Tuesday, so you'll have the weekly expiry that will play out yet again. So expect some kind of volatility, particularly towards the end of trade. The FIs, yesterday they didn't buy, but they sold a measly 200 crores odd. Par for the course, one would say, and the DIs, they're showing us the big money. What about on the index futures? Well, they went ahead and they added some short positioning. Close on 4,000 contracts is what they added. 93% of their positioning on the short side. I'll tell you what, you'll not complain with these short positioning at extreme levels. Any kind of glimmer of good news, in fact, could push the markets higher. So shorts in the system actually is providing some kind of cushion. And that's why I've been saying that this market from sell on rise has actually turned into buy on dip. So bad news is getting bought into, like we saw yesterday. And what they did on the option side? Well, they wrote more calls. They unwound some puts that they wrote earlier. And because of the kind of call writing that we saw, the PCR that had moved to around 1.35, that's come back down to around 1. So that's realigned itself, which is actually a good thing because you don't want the PCR to move to the upper end of the band. Moving to the options data then, the reason the PCR came down because the call writers, 25,200 call, 25,300 call, massive open interest built up on both those two. While on the downside, the 25,200 put as well did see a good amount of open interest built up. Keep in mind, these strikes will expire today itself. Which brings us to the data points. What are the levels you're looking at? Now, yesterday's low is going to be important because yesterday's low as well as on Friday's low is around that 25,150 ballpark. You know, the crucial level that you're looking at, the first support level is at around 25,000. But if you want to track one level, that's the one on the downside. Last week's high is going to be important. If you can get past that, this is the congestion zone from a bullish perspective, 25,330 to around 25,450 odd. The Nifty Bank, well, yesterday there was one encouraging sign because it's continuously making higher lows. So in terms of a reference point, you've got that data point as well. So the Nifty Bank, well, that seems to be in fine momentum and it's been looking quite good as well. So that will continue to lead the way. But today, you could get some kind of support coming in for tech because HCL Tech's numbers were very, very good. You know, if you look at the revenue growth, the margin, the deal wins, as well as, you know, their talk with regard to reporting AI revenue separately. So that one could fuel up a bit of a rally in the IT stocks, or at least, unlike yesterday, we won't see that kind of a fall on tech, which underperformed yesterday. So that's one stock that I'm looking at. The other two names that I'm looking at is MCX. You know, I was looking at the premium, the average premium on Friday itself was much higher than the Q2 average, which was as much higher than the Q1 average. So those premiums that they're reporting actually on a day-to-day basis is much higher than what the street is working with. So that's what could help MCX. BSE, because obviously it appears now that the fear with regard to the weekly options is gradually receding. So both those two exchanges continue to remain on the radar. And the big listing, LG list today, expected to be a blockbuster one. So I'll keep an eye out on this stock. You have a couple of initiating coverage reports on the day of its listing. So that one should have a blockbuster listing later today.
Indeed. So Sensex weekly expiry today, the LG Electronics IPO opening. And on the earnings front, keep your eye on Tech Mahindra, Persistent, ICICI Lombard, ICICI Prudential, IREDA, Cyient DLM and Bank of Maharashtra. These will be the big earnings for the day.